Hi everyone, this is JarlXL and welcome to another deck guide on channel Duello. Well, what are we going to play today? We're in the new season and there have been some major, changes. In my last video, I talked about monsters, buff to, possible buffs to monsters. And the week before that, I talked about Squirtle. And unfortunately, my predictions were wrong. I think I was right in just a couple of cards, and they were not that difficult to guess. And but I mean, they buffed the Wild Hunt, cards, and also Elves cards. So I didn't, predict the exact buffs to the cards, but I think I kind of predicted that, a well-deserved buff was needed for Elf and, Wild Hunt archetype. I'm not going to talk much about Wild Hunt today because I'm going to play Elves. In my next video, it will probably be, monsters. So you're going to see, how the new buffs affect that faction. Anyhow, so our focus is on Squirtle today. A lot of Elf cards, got major buffs in this patch. Let's, take a look at them. I'm gonna use several of them in this deck list. I think the highlight of this patch is Waylay. And I think CD Projekt Red kinda, overbuffed this card. Well, think about, just think how it was before. I mean, the card received a buff already. It was 5 provision. 5 provision, 3 damage, and a possible death blow, and it's the Elven Deadeye spawn. It was really bad. So they buffed it to 4 provision. People still didn't use that card unless they're, playing a Saskia deck or something like that to fill the requirement. But right now it's just crazy, and if you're playing Elves, you definitely should play 2 of these cards. Why? Because the death blow requirement is gone. When you play Wailer, you're just gonna spawn an Elven Deadeye automatically, even if you don't damage an enemy unit. That's how it goes. A couple of days ago, I played against a trap deck. There wasn't any unit on the board, obviously. So I just, played Waylays into thin air, and Elven Deadeyes were spawned. So I think that's really powerful. So Waylays are really good cards right now, and as you know, there are some cards that interact well with Waylay. For example, if you type Waylay, on the keyboard, in the search engine, you're not just gonna see Waylay here. Oops. See, these 2 cards got buffed as well. For example, Feign Death. The final chapter of Feign Death was Waylay, and it wasn't easy to get the death blow with the second chapter, so Waylay was most of the time playing for only 3 points if the opponent is careful. But right now, it's just gonna spawn an Elven Deadeye, so Feign Death got buffed. That's an obvious buff. A bigger buff is on Vanadane, actually, because whenever you play a Waylay card, an Elven Deadeye will be spawned as long as Vanadane is on the board. Waylay is already spawning, Deadeye cards. So when you play Waylay, 2 Elven Deadeyes will be spawned. And another card that has nice interaction with Elven Deadeye is, so let's type Deadeye keyword. Actually, there are a lot of cards. Well, the card I'm going to talk about is Vernociel. As you all know, usually you play Vernociel on range row, and she spawns 2 Elven Deadeyes, just to make a long, row. But when you're playing, especially, Deadeye Ambush leader ability, you're gonna have more Deadeyes than other leaders. So that's why Vernociel is usually being played on melee row. So if you have more than 2, Deadeyes, she's gonna bring a lot of points on the board, and during the process, maybe those Deadeye shots could kill some important targets. And if you calculate, carefully, you can actually target your 2 damages. So you gotta be careful when you play, Vernociel. And since we're playing Waylays, there will be more than usual Deadeyes on the board. So a lot of point potential has been increased for Vernasil. Moreover, Vernasil is not 12 provision any longer, so she is 11. Actually, I suggested this buff, and that's one of my correct predictions here. And she got to 11 provisions, and also, you know, this buff also actually made this card stronger. So that's nice for the elves, I guess. What else? Well, there is another card which didn't have any interactions with Waylay, but now this has, not Waylay, but Deadeyes. Toruvil used to be a good card like 2 years ago. When you're playing elves, I mean, she was a really nice answer to, you know, long rolls. Nice roll punish card. But now, I mean, for 8 provisions, you didn't get a lot of value from Toruvil. I mean, when you play on melee row, you only get like 8 points. 8 for 8 is bad actually in this meta. So she was only good when the opponent, you know, formed a long row and you hit the entire row by 1, and then you could get a lot of value. Now, if there is an Elven Deadeye on the board, both of these abilities will be triggered, and that's a huge buff to this card. Because, I mean, suppose there are 5 units on a range row. I mean, you play for Nacio, so it's gonna play 8 for 9. I mean, 4 plus 5, and then she's gonna hit the units, you know, on the front and on the same row, on the left and right units. So 4 more damage on the way, and all of a sudden it becomes a 13-point card. So that's just one example. If there are a lot of units, I mean, on a single row, the damage will be, you know, increased even further. So right now, I mean, you can't think about an elf deck without Toruvil. This is an insane buff to this, you know, has-been card, but it looks like she's popular once again. There are also other cards, you know, that could benefit from having Deadeye on the board, like, you know, Elias. But unfortunately, I don't have room for Elias in this deck. But this is a good card, and I think it needs a little bit buff. But after all these buffs, I think Elias could stay there, so no need to touch him right now, because I mean, you're gonna see the other buffs here. Half Elf Hunter is an okay card, so it's gonna spawn an Elven Deadeye, so maybe Vernasil could benefit from that. But I mean, we don't have room for him, because there are better 5 provision targets like Dolblath and Archer. They reworked this card, and it has become a, you know, more conditional card. I mean, before that, she was being played for 5, you know, 5 for 7. You know, you play her on melee row. Her power used to be 5 and deal 2 damage, so that was a good card, but not great. Now, there are some conditions. If you play her on melee row, she is going to damage an enemy unit by 3. So it's going to be 5 for 5. So it's definitely worse compared to what she was. But if you could do a death blow, it's going to spawn an Elven Deadeye. So all of a sudden it's 5 for 8. So it's more than the previous version. The ranged ability is even crazier. It says damage 2 enemy units by 1. So again, this is pretty bad. But if you could, you know, get death blow, and you could get death blow on both of those targets, you're gonna spawn 2 Elven Deadeyes, and that's really crazy. But I would suggest using Precision Strike if you plan to do this. It's really difficult to do that with Deadeye Ambush, because there are no, you know, pings to, you know, enable death blow. You only have what was her name? Elven Swordmaster and Dolblath and a Bowman. Swordmaster is really great with that, but the opponent usually finds an answer to this guy. So it's not as good as playing Precision Strike, but with Precision Strike, you're gonna spawn some, you know, Broculon Sentinels. They are Dryads, not Elves. So there are some problems with that, but I made a list similar to this using Precision Strike. You can check that out in my Turkish Duello channel. I think that list is pretty good and fun to play as well. But right now we're focusing on Deadeye Ambush. Okay, so what else has been changed? Taking a look at this list, I think the other cards are the same, that include Deadeye. So let's return to our list and see if there are any more changes that's worth talking about. Yeah, there is actually. Dolblath and the Bowman's power has been increased to 4 from 3. So 1 point is 1 point, that's nice. Now it's better considering the current meta. And let's take a look at the rest of the cards. Where we're playing Feign Death, obviously. And we have actually a really great interaction here. Another victory condition for a round. I mean, you could win a round just playing this interaction. And that interaction is, as I said, Vanadane is much stronger right now. You play Vanadane, you create 2 waylays. And you usually don't want to play waylays in the same round. And that round is ideally going to be first round. You play Vanadane, you create waylays, and then send 2, I would say, mediocre cards at the bottom of your deck. And if you have Aileron in your hand, I would suggest keeping her, so you can send her back to the bottom. So there is no risk of, breaking her when you do that. And then I would say, a bronze card. So maybe, you may have to, use the waylays, but if you don't use the waylays, you play Simlas, and then Simlas will draw, 4 waylay cards, because there will be 4 waylay cards in your deck. Yeah, you're gonna send the newly produced waylays in the mulligan phase back to your deck, so you could have up to 4 waylay cards. Well, some decks are kind of abusing this. They're adding Alyssa and Renew card and producing even more waylays, but that deck is basically built around that combo. You don't have another victory condition. They're also playing Feign Death and Vernasil, but they don't have these mid-range, nice control cards. So I think this version is better than that greedy version. And I find that version kind of a meme, actually. But I think this deck is strong. Okay, let's get back to it. So that's what Simless is for. I also added double Bountiful Harvest just in case you weren't able to do your combo with waylays. So this is an alternative approach. But if you have Bountiful Harvest in your hand, don't send it back. So, it's still a pretty good card for 6 provisions. Since we're playing an elf theme deck, I don't think we have a unit other than any elves. So that's why Bountiful Harvests are producing elf cards, so that's nice. And well, RNG is kind of effective when you play this. Sometimes all 3 choices are terrible, but at worst case scenario, one of the units in your hand will be boosted by 2, so that's a carryover card for the second or third round. Okay, so let's keep looking at the gold cards. I added Korathi Heatwave. Well, we got some control tools with elves damaging stuff, but you kind of need a big removal, tall removal target, and Heatwave fits the bill. I was thinking about adding the location card, the Mushy Truffle. You have the bonded elves to use with Mushy Truffle, obviously. They are pretty good, I guess. But the problem is board space. Mushy Truffle is going to occupy a space, it's going to produce a unit and so on, and you need to have 3 more spaces on the board so that you can play your leader. In some cases you're not going to have room to play anything, so especially if you're playing against Nilfgaard, they can fill your board with their spies, so you gotta make sure that you don't play a very long round. So again, role placement could be a problem, so that's why I didn't want to play Truffle. And also Feign Death is occupying another space. That's not a unit, that's just an artifact, and so is Mushy Truffle, so 2 units lost on the board. So keep that in mind. That's why I'm not using that. Instead I'm using Heatwave. So Isengrim also got a buff. Now he's 6 power, 2 points buff, and that's very nice, I guess. Well, as you see, we're gonna be spawning a lot of elves, so Isengrim will play for at least like 15 or 16 points. And Aileron is for thinning. you need 5 elves on the board to thin her out, and definitely recommend thinning her out in the first round so that you draw your gold cards earlier. So don't hesitate to, but I mean, you gotta keep track of the number of elves always. So if it feels like you're gonna pass and try to defend the bleed in the second round, you don't have to play for 5 elves, so you can keep her in your deck. So when the opponent tries to bleed you, she could come out of the deck and get you some more much needed 5-point boost. And then well, we talked about this. Well, Yevon is obviously a standard inclusion for any elves deck. He is great. You just need to have a lot of elves on the same board. Even if you don't have, you just play your leader and spawn 3 elves. So if you're missing an elf or 2 for the damage, you could always do that with Yevon. So that's one of the advantages of playing Deadeye Ambush actually over Precision Strike. Those are the gold cards, so let's talk about the other bronze cards that I didn't talk about. Rawhead Vanguard got a buff. This is usually the first card to play because this card puts up by 1 for each elf in your hand. So all we have are elves, so it's gonna play for a lot of points, but I mean, this could get reset or something like that, so that's bad. But they added a ranged ability. Boosts up by 1 for each elf on this row. So this could play like an oak. I mean, obviously it's not an oak, but I mean, if you play this as your last card and there are like 8 units on the same row and you play this as your 9th unit, so it's gonna play for 11. But this is the most optimistic scenario, obviously. But keep that in mind. So you don't have to play this card as your very first card. And this could be a, round finishing option, I would say, not game finishing. So I added 1 copy of it. I'm kind of experimenting on it. I'm not unhappy about using him, so I'll keep testing it. So I talked about Dull Blood Archer. This card is definitely better on Precision Strike list, but it's okay here. So 2 Waylays and a single Rawhead Sappers. If you're playing against a toxic deck like a greedy deck that plays defenders, you just play your Sappers and purify the defender and deal with the threat behind defender. And it's easy to get the offensive purify value in this list, because if you control an elf, purify any unit instead. Unless you are very careless, you should always have an elf. But if you don't have an elf, you just use 1 charge of your leader, produce your elf, and then play Sappers. Don't forget that. So double Swordmaster and double Bowman and double Vernacil's Commando. Well, as you see, all of the units I have here are elves. So since there are no elves, it's gonna keep boosting himself by 1. And well, that could be a legitimate threat. At the end of the round, you could see this card up to like 10-11 points. So kind of surprising for a 4 provision card. And also this is a proactive play, and this deck has a lot of reactive plays. Most of the cards require a unit on the opposite row or something like that to be effective. So we need some proactive cards. So that's why Elven Swordmaster, Vernacil's Commando, and Rawhead Vanguard fit that bill. Yeah, so you could play one of those 5 cards to start the game with. And also Vanadane is also a nice start to play. That's also another proactive play. And finally, for my last 4 provision slide, I added a single Dull Blood and a Bomber. Damage 2 random enemy units by 2. Why did I add that? Because I'm looking for a death blow for Dull Blood and an Archer, so maybe this card could provide me that. But I mean, you could go for even Squirrel, for that slot as a tech card. But keep in mind that Squirrel is not an elf, so that kind of disrupts the flow of Vernacil's Commando. So another alternative could be Squirtle Neophyte, but Neophytes are better in Precision Strike because you may need Elven Deadeyes with that list, because your leader isn't running Deadeyes, so Neophyte will transform units to Deadeyes, so that's why you kind of need that. But in this I think Bomber is better than this. But if you feel like you don't have enough proactive cards, Neophyte could be a solid option. So what could be another option? Blue Mountain Elite could be a replacement for Bomber. So Bomber will play for possibly 6. This could play for 6 as well, the same thing. And they are both situational cards, but this one is slightly better. So you just need 2 units on the board. And what else do we have? Well, again, Officer could be played, but you need 2 of them. And since we're not running Truffle, I don't think we need this card. And I don't think we have any other elf cards. Elven Scribe is an okay card, but we're not playing a lot of spells, so he could stay in our deck builder. Yeah, and also Ryehead Dragoon. So you could go ahead and replace Bomber with Dragoon if if you feel like you need some movement, or if the meta changed to Keltulus decks or something like that. You kind of need the Dragoon to move units. But I mean, both Dragoon and Sappers are just tech cards. This is a meta call, whether you want to use them or not. Okay, so that's it. I intentionally prepared this deck guide kind of long and very detailed because I'm just gonna play one game. To be honest with you, I'm deeply involved in playing Elden Ring. I've already buried like 70 plus hours into that game. That's a phenomenal game, and I'm already shooting some videos on my Turkish channel. Unfortunately, I don't plan to shoot non-Gwent videos in this channel. Maybe in the future, I don't know. But since I'm playing that game, I already told you guys that I'm waiting for the new cards to put more time on Gwent. So again, this season I'm just gonna go from rank 3 to pro rank and stop playing. So the deck guides are not gonna be often. So sorry for that. I apologize for that. So there will be less content in the March, but hopefully after that you'll see the increase in content. And thank you for sticking out with me, and let's move to the sample game. Okay, the game I selected for you today is going to be against Monsters White Frost deck. It is one of the most popular decks right now on the ladder, but I'm pretty sure it's going to lose its popularity as time passes by, because I don't think it's particularly strong. Well, there are some buffs, obviously, but I don't think they're good enough. And you're gonna see why. That deck is really a red coin deck, in my opinion. When it's playing on blue coin, it's gonna struggle, and you're gonna see why, as I said. Okay, let's start the video, and I'm gonna be commenting on the video because my microphone was not on while I was shooting this. But anyhow, this is a different experience. I really like to, call it play by play, and make some retrospective comments on the game, on the plays that I made and also the opponent made. So hopefully this is going to be a useful video for you guys. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm on red coin here, which is huge advantage against this White Frost deck. Let's take a look at our mulligan choices. Okay, so Aileron is an obvious mulligan choice, but when you're playing Vanadane, you gotta keep these 2 cards. Obvious Aileron and another useless card, and in this case, I don't need Purify against White Frost. So I was, banking on Oneiromancy here, but using Oneiromancy to draw Vanadane, but I didn't need to because I drew him naturally. Opponent starts with Nithral. Nithral is pretty good in, Carapace decks because you can protect him. And also with this stratagem, it is possible to protect Nithral. I can Oneiromancy and use Heatwave to get rid of that. But I went red queen, and opponent will find a way to win here and get round control. I think I'll be okay defending the bleed. So what I'm planning to do is, you know, hopefully get some good cards out of the opponent and then defend the second round and hopefully get card advantage. That was the plan. So I went for this elf card, a 9 powered card. I wanted to put, you know, big powered units on the board, but it's not, as you see, big enough. So I think it's a minor mistake. I didn't need to play it unless it was 10 power. It's 9 power, so monster's opponent still has dominance here. But I mean, what else could I have played here? I mean, unless I play Heatwave, I think this is still the best play here. Okay, so opponent goes for Wild Hunt Warrior. Wild Hunt Warrior is definitely better, especially the synergy with White Frost. I go for Vanadane as my second card and use Aileron and the Purify Elf and send them back to the bottom of the deck and get 2 Valets, which I'm not planning to use at all. But in some cases you gotta use them. So opponent goes for Toad Prince and consumes Vanadane. That's a good, you know, play. But still, you know, opponent just used 2 gold cards. I'm going for Bountiful Harvest here to get some carryover for the next round. And the selections are pretty bad. I mean, Farseer will not draw a special card. Hawker Healer is just gonna play for 5. And I don't have any card to boost Seer. So I think the best choice is Hawker Healer. It's gonna play for 5 and 2 boost on Vernal. After that, hopefully opponent will play Frost card. It will be nice to see the Queen out, but instead opponent plays the you know, improved version of Red Riders, goes for Frost and then replays Wild Hunt Warrior. It doesn't make too much difference in points, but I think it's good, you know, keeping the pressure on me. So there is no need to keep playing here. I mean, I could have played the Dolblathan Archer here, but then the opponent could have passed, and, you know, I mean, that would have been a tempo pass, and to catch the opponent, I would have to play, you know, one of the gold cards or, you know, some leader charges, so that's why I passed here. So I'm sending the obvious 2 waylay targets, and all I'm getting are bronze cards. That's not really nice. I have Oniromancy, so I'm gonna Oniromancy for Simlas, and somehow I gotta find a way to draw the remaining 3 gold cards in my deck. Okay, Phantom Hyperion is a solid start, definitely. I could go for Commando, Elven Swordmaster, or Bountiful Harvest. All are fine. So I go for Bountiful Harvest. The best choice is here Dolblathan and Bowman. I mean, Phantom isn't on the range row, but what can you do? So one of the good thing about, you know, playing small cards is, you know, opponent will not find good Frost targets and lose some points while creating Frost. Okay, another Wild Hunt Warrior. No elves on the board. I'm gonna play Bomber here. There are 2, you know, units on the board, and she's gonna hit them for 2, and the Wild Hunt Warrior is right now in the death blow range for Dolblathan Archer. I'll probably use 2 waylays to kill the Phantom. Here comes Ancient Foglet, and the opponent goes to 6 cards and plays a leader. I think that's overcommitment here. And it looks like a good opportunity to play waylays from my deck using Simlas. And I'm gonna lose 2 points. But when you look at it, you know, Phantom will still has that charge on him. So there are 3 more points on the Phantom. So I think it's a good call here. So 3 plus 3 is 6. Foglet is gone. Phantom is gone. I just couldn't risk, you know, leaving Phantom on the board there. And I have 6 elves, more than 5 actually. Aelern comes out, and it's really a good situation right now for me. 4 elves, 4 Elven Deadeyes on the board. I mean, if the opponent keeps playing, you know, I could play all of my hand, and hopefully I can get out of the round. I don't have Isengrim, but I think, you know, Vernal would be enough to wipe out my opponent's units if the opponent keeps putting pressure on me. But, well, I didn't need to do any of that. Opponent just passes here. I don't think it was a good call. He should have kept playing, in my opinion, because, you know, there are a lot of units on the board. You know, Frost would find some value when you have a board state like this. So instead goes for the long round, but my long round is really, really good. I think it's better than White Frost. Okay, so 2 gold cards are missing. Hopefully, with my remaining 2 mulligans, I'll draw one of them, and there it is, Feign Death. Okay, that's perfect. I have some bronzes, obviously, but they're gonna help me with my cause. I'm gonna start with Swordmaster, and opponent will probably use the leader to push her to the range row. I don't want to right away start with Feign Death. Yeah, you know, just to use the pings on that. But I mean, as you see, it's been moved. Opponent didn't use Wild Hunt Riders in the first round, so, and that's a solid, you know, 20-point play. But it's not a short round, so it's not that impressive. So now it's safe to go Feign Death here. And these, you know, commanders are actually good against monsters because they keep getting bigger. You know, hopefully it will interrupt dominance. Okay, opponent goes for Eredin, and the queen comes out, but she is worthless in the final round. I think the opponent should have pushed me in the second round and got her queen out. Okay, so what to do with Eredin? I think it's a good heatwave target. Because, I mean, to kill Eredin, I need to put a lot of elves on the board and, you know, hopefully kill it with Yevon. As you see, there are only 1 elf on the board. It's really not possible to do it in a single round, so I think it was a good call to play Heatwave here. Opponent goes for this Frost card. And the opponent is actually doing a good job to, you know, use the Frost value. I think he didn't miss any points so far. My Feign Death obviously spawns on melee row, so the Frost will hit those elves. In the meantime, the Commando is getting, you know, bigger on the range row. That's nice. Here comes the second Ancient Foglet. So the opponent's list is somewhat different from what most people play, because in that list there's only 1 Foglet. Okay, so what to do here? Foglet could really get big and get out of hand, and I don't have any other control cards remaining. So I can put 6 elves on the board, including Yevon, and gonna kill that Foglet before it gets a huge problem. So Waylay is spawned because of the last chapter of Feign Death, and now Oberon is at 3 power, and I can kill him with Dolblath and Archer. But I mean, gotta keep eye on the role placement here. As you see, there are 7 cards on melee row, so Vernal and Dolblath and Archer will come into melee row, so hopefully the spawn will be on range row, but it didn't happen, so that sucks. So I'm gonna, you know, hope that opponent will clear some space for me in melee row for my Vernal, because it would be really nice to use Vernal when I have 7 Deadeyes on the board. Okay, opponent goes for Wild Hunt Bruiser. There's probably nothing he can do but that, so thank you, and here comes the massive Vernal. But it left no, you know, death blow target. So it would have been nice if one of those Wild Hunt riders were at 2 health. It didn't happen. Another Frost card. That's what this deck does. I don't find it that impressive. So it looks like Heatwave on Eridan kind of saved the game for me, because all those 2 damages would have been 3 and those Deadeyes would have been gone. Okay, I lost a Deadeye in the process. I need to play Isengrim as soon as possible and play the last 2 remaining elves, and I'm not gonna lose point while making that play. And I have room on melee row, but it doesn't matter because there is no death blow for Dolblath and Archer. So I'm just gonna play her on range row and deal 2-1 damage. So if you can't hit death blow with the new version of this Archer, it's pretty bad. As you see, it's only 4 points, but I mean, I should have played it on melee row. So I lost a point there. There is no reason to do that when I look at it, and the opponent just loses the game. The last card, Imler's Wrath, is really weak. I mean, I recommended buffing that card in my last video, but CD Per thinks it's okay. But as you see, it's not a good card at all. Okay, so that's it for me. I hope you liked the video and the deck guide. And see you later on another Gwent video on Channel Duello. Bye bye.